In this video, you'll learn how to apply for a US passport for the first time if you're 16 and older. If you're applying for a child's passport that is under 16, I've made a separate video because the process is a little different. The application process is broken into 4 steps: documents, forms, payments, and appointments. In order to receive a US passport, you'll have to provide proof of US citizenship or naturalization. Applicants will fall under one of 2 categories: applicants born in the United States or applicants born outside of the United States. If you're an applicant born in the United States, you can provide a birth certificate for the document section. If you're a citizen born outside of the United States, you will need to provide a lot more documents, and you'll need to fall under one of these 3 categories. If you are claiming citizenship through the naturalization of one or both of your parents, you'll need to provide these documents. If you are claiming citizenship through birth abroad by at least one parent being a US citizen, you'll need to provide these documents. And lastly, if you're claiming citizenship through adoption by a US citizen, you'll need to provide these documents. Regardless of which document you provide, you will need to submit the original or certified copy. And you'll need to provide a photocopy of the front of each document, and if there's something written on the back, you will also need to submit a copy of the back. Copies should be single-sided and never double-sided. Next, you'll need to provide proof of identity. This can be done by providing your driver's license. It cannot be a learner's permit or a temporary license. And if you don't have a driver's license, you can provide one of these documents. And once again, remember to make photocopies of this document to provide with your application. Next, you'll need to have a colored photograph taken to submit with your application. The photo should be 2x2 and taken less than 6 months ago. You can take this photograph at many retailers that I'm sure you can find in your area, or you can take the photograph yourself at home. Whether you choose to have your photograph taken at a retailer or you do it yourself, make sure it meets all of the US Department of State's photograph requirements. If your photograph is rejected by the US Department of State, your application will be delayed. If you're an applicant aged 16 and 17, you will need to provide proof of parental awareness. The US Department of State wants to make sure that at least one parent is aware that you're applying for a US passport. You can provide this proof by having one parent attend the appointment with you, and if your parent is unable to attend the appointment with you, here are some ways that you can prove that parental awareness. The last document that you need to get your hands on is your Social Security card. While your Social Security card does not need to be submitted with your US passport application, you will need the number to place on your application. So if you don't know your Social Security number, this is a good time to find it, memorize it, put it on the application, and then return it to a safe place. Now that we have all of our documents, we'll move on to the second step in the process: forms. First-time US passport applicants should complete Form DS-11. Form DS-11 can be found on the US Department of State's website, or it can be obtained in person at a United States Postal Service at any of their locations. Form DS-11 is comprised of 6 pages. Pages 1 through 4 are the instructions to help you complete the application, as well as contain important information that you'll find useful. The actual application is found on page 5 through 6, and that is what should be submitted to the US Department of State. As I mentioned before, the form can be found on the US Department of State's website. While you can fill out the application on their website, you cannot submit it to them that way. You will need to print out the form single-sided and then submit it in the mail. If you choose to obtain the form from the US Postal Service, make sure that you are very careful with completing the application. If you make any mistakes or errors, you cannot cross them out and write over it. You will need to start a whole new application. And most importantly, if you complete the physical application from the US Postal Service, you need to make sure that the application is completed in black ink only. If you'd like to learn how to complete the application on the US Department of State's website, I've made a video explaining that process, and you can find the link in the description. Now let's move to the third step in the process: payment. To determine how much you'll have to pay for your US passport, you can head to the US Department of State's website and use their fee chart or fee calculator. At the time of this recording, a US passport book costs $130 for applicants aged 16 and older. If you'd like to request additional pages in your passport book, you can do so at no additional cost. Because this is your first time applying for a passport, you will have to pay a $35 execution fee. If you'd like to expedite the processing time of a US passport, you'll have to pay an additional $60 in addition to the fees mentioned previously. Once your new US passport has been processed and printed, you can request that the US Department of State send the new passport back to you in 1 to 2 days for $19.53 at the time of this recording. This fee is what you'll have to pay in addition to the fees mentioned previously. To be clear, the fees to expedite the processing time and to expedite the delivery time after the passport has been printed are completely optional. You can choose to do one or the other, or both. If you're an applicant applying in the United States at an acceptance facility and not at a passport agency, you can provide a check or a money order as form of payment. The check or money order should have your name, as well as your date of birth printed on it and should be made out to the U.S. Department of State. The $35 execution fee that I mentioned earlier should not be included in the payment made to the U.S. Department of State. Instead, this payment will be made directly to the acceptance facility for them reviewing your application before sending it to the U.S. Department of State. The acceptance facility will determine how they accept their payment. Usually it is accepted by debit or credit card and oftentimes by check or by money order. If you're an applicant applying at a U.S. passport agency, you can make your payment in the form of a check, money order, credit, or debit card. If you make your payment in the form of check or money order, make sure that it's made out to the U.S. Department of State and that your full name and date of birth are listed on the payment. You will include the $35 execution fee in the check or money order or in the debit or credit card payment. If you're applying outside of the United States, please head to your embassy's website to determine which forms of payments are acceptable. Last but not least, the final step in the process is appointments. Because this is your first time applying for a U.S. passport, you will need to make an appointment at an acceptance facility or a passport agency. You can schedule your passport appointment on the United States Postal Service website. You can find the page to schedule the appointment by Googling U.S. passport appointment or by clicking the link in the description. If you need some help scheduling an appointment on the USPS website, I've made a short video explaining how to do just that. The link can be found down in the description box. If you've made an appointment at a U.S. passport acceptance facility, which will usually be a post office, make sure that you arrive at least 10 minutes before your scheduled appointment time. Your appointment will only be 15 minutes, and if you miss it, you'll likely need to make a new appointment. And if you've made an appointment at a U.S. passport agency, I'd recommend that you arrive at least 45 minutes to an hour before. Lines can usually be very lengthy, and you want to make sure that you arrive in time for your appointment. If you miss your appointment time, they will not squeeze you in. You'll have to make another one, and who knows when that could be. Now, regardless of where you've made your appointment, make sure that you are organized. The last thing that you want to do is aggravate the acceptance agent and they turn you away and tell you to make another appointment. And now you know what you need to do when applying for a US passport for the first time if you're 16 or older. If you found this video valuable, give it a thumbs up. It'll really help YouTube push it out to other first-time US passport applicants that are looking for a step-by-step guide. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!